mean, we're a church family, we're like a business family. There's a mom and dad, and you're supposed to be just like mommy, and mommy don't do this, and mommy don't do that. And I'm like, but I'm Kier.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Let's Get Candid. I'm your host, Ziggy, with my amazing co-host.
I'm your girl, Lori.
And today we're back for another amazing episode. But just before we get to that, I want to briefly just tell you about Let's Get Candid, which is about having authentic and transparent conversations. The topics you may never think that we may be having, we're taking from the group chat and bringing it here. So we're glad to have you a part of this conversation with us. This week, we're going to be talking about creating your own legacy. And we have none other than Mrs. Kier Adams-Hegner with us to indulge in this conversation. So I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself to you.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Kier Adams-Hegner, as mentioned. I am by profession, I'm an architect. And I think relevant to this topic, it's relevant to mention that I'm also a part of local family business, obviously, the Do It Center, plug. The Do It Center, which I think most people know, so that's fair to share. And yes, so I'm here to indulge in this topic and give my point of view.
Yeah, that's great. So, like Ziggy mentioned earlier, what we're going to be looking at is legacies and legacy building. But beyond that, being a part of legacies, like Kier, how you mentioned, you are a part of the family that owns Do It Center. So being a part of such a well-known family and also going through life, making your own mark out there in the world. So I think for us, the conversation is going to be touching a bunch of different things because we want to know how it is to experience living within it, but also how it is to have your own stamp. How do you go about making a stamp that is different to what's been made before, to have your little mark in whatever it may be,
that differentiates you, yeah?
Yes, because I think it all comes down to wanting to show your individuality, and it might be hard to do sometimes, especially in a place as small as here where everyone feels like they already know you.
Because they know your family?
Yes, once you know my mom, my pa, it's instant that you know me as well, right? So just getting to know a little deeper and dig deeper into what it is that is behind a legacy.
Okay.
What makes a legacy, right?
Yeah. How do we even define those things, right?
So definitely an interesting, as you can see, a very interesting conversation, but one that I also think like you've maybe haven't touched on, but it ties into a lot of purpose as well, right? And how you want to be remembered. So I think it's a timely conversation, an amazing conversation. And we're going to be right back from a quick break, but please don't leave. Please stay with us.
This message is brought to you by Island Bargains.
Welcome back to Let's Get Candid. Right before we left, we had just introduced our guest, Mrs. Kier Adams-Hegner, and we also introduced the topic that we're going to be touching on today, which is creating a legacy, right? And the process of it. But we keep throwing around this legacy word, right? I think it's important that we define what it is that a legacy is. What is it to have a legacy, So I want to know from you guys first, what do you think is a legacy?
Well, I think when you think of legacy, first, I think you think of purpose. What am I here for? How do I do that? And then you think about how, when I do what I do, how do I want people to feel? How do I want them to be impacted based on my actions, right? Legacy is this lasting thing that, maybe I may have not known you, right? Because, a lot of times, well, definitely like you be around your grandparents, they'll be telling you about people from, you ain't even know these people, and they're telling you about all sorts of things about these people, but they've left a lasting imprint. Whether it can be just being a funny person or was professional. So in any context, but they have done something that has lived way beyond their lifetime. So creating that story that you want people to always remember you by, right? And then to impact people on your journey of legacy. So I think for me, that sums a bit of it out.
Okay, what about you, Kier?
A very similar view to Ziggy. Ziggy?
Yeah,
To
definitely Ziggy.
Okay, a very similar view to Ziggy. You know, I think your legacy should be your story that extends beyond your existence. You know, how you've made people feel, it starts at home, how you've made your family feel, what do they think of you, what is theirs. If they were to tell someone who you were, how would they say it? And then, we're human beings, so we're multifaceted. We have multiple personalities. That's the truth. You're one person to your family and you're one person in your professional stance. And, it just kind of depends on
The situation.
your situations, your context. And I think it's important. A part of your legacy is knowing those contexts and understanding those contexts and choosing those contexts. Well, first of all, choosing those contexts. And then knowing how you want those people to remember you or tell your story beyond you. Like we sit down and we talk about our grandparents. We talk about like my grandmother, my dad's mom, she passed away when he was a child. But the way her legacy has been carried on, it's like we all know her. Like she's a household name, like the stories, it's almost, and everybody would be like, oh, Grandma Ida this, Grandma Ida that. And so that's the sort of thing, your story that extends far beyond you.
Definitely.
I think for me, on a personal level, I agree with both of you guys. Because even like you were saying with your grandmother, I can remember with relatively all of my grandparents, there's been a moment where someone said to me that they're doing this for me because my grandfather or my grandmother did that for them,
that happens.
Especially in my family, they took in a lot of people oftentimes. And it's just like, I have all these uncles and aunts who have no relation to me whatsoever. And they treat me like I'm their niece, even though it's not blood. It's just a matter of the people before me who were so open to them to allow them into their homes and treat them like they were their own children, But I think as well, people also get caught up in the idea of legacy being wealth and money. Well, legacy is how much can I leave behind for my kids? Can I give you guys all this property and things like that? And, yes, those things are great, but sometimes you find that, well, even not sometimes, oftentimes you find that the material things, it doesn't match up well if you don't have all those intimate, personal bits, if you don't have that emotional aspect involved in the legacy, it almost seems like, okay, I won a lottery rather than somebody who cares about me handed it down, So I think from a personal level, yes, legacy is definitely where it's, what did you feel from that person, or what did I make somebody feel that's going to make them remember me, like you both said, long after I'm gone, but also on a, I guess, state level or public level, it's what did I leave behind physically for people to carry on for me,
Starting our work and then letting them take on with it. But you had said something important too, where you said, legacy also about starting at home and what do your family at home think of you? Because I think a lot of times we think about legacy and then we go straight to what does everyone else think? But how do you impact the people that you live with first and foremost before you get to my friends and all those other people, right? So I think that is something that I don't think we ever really look at that or we ever really mention about legacy and, in the home.
The family,
we just always go straight to how do I want strangers to see me, right? So I thought that was a really great point as well.
And it's funny because that was actually something I was thinking about the other day with my own family, where I was sitting down and I was just like, my cousin Jewel is really like the glue in our family, It's like, I always used to tell people, Jewel's the nicest person on the planet, if you ask me. And it's her legacy that she's like the glue to our family, even those things that you kind of take for granted at times. And then you sit down and really reflect on it. It's like, you have such an important purpose and value within the family unit itself that it doesn't even matter if you left me $1 million, which would be great, but that emotional and just intimate value that you bring, it
cannot be replaced.
It supersedes things, So now that we've discussed what the definition of a legacy is, right? I think it is important to talk about the kind of misconceptions that can occur within being someone who comes from a certain legacy, be it that you come from a family that is able to give generational wealth, or you come from a legacy of people before you who probably didn't do the best things, right? And how does that impact the way we show up in the world? And how does that impact how people view us in the world, you know? So the question I want to pose to you ladies, firstly, is how have you experienced the impact of the legacy that was left before you?
That's an interesting question. This is the first time I've ever been kind of speechless. Wow, you guys have caught me speechless. I'm thinking. It's my thinking phase. So,
You want me to tip in?
yeah, tip in, and then me
okay.
tip out after. What I'm
For
thinking.
myself, I remember, so my dad went into government when I was really, really young. I was about 6, maybe 5. And I can remember growing up, I was pretty shy. I was really shy. I was really sensitive. And I have these family members who are always seen out in public. You know, my dad does public speaking and, you know, seeing him on the TV and stuff. People are like, oh, your daddy's like this, so you should be like this. And it's like, no, that's not who I am. Now, mind you, I grew into be quite like him as time went on because I love to talk at this point. But when I was younger, it was heavy on me to be that kind of person, you know. And even for my mom, people tell me all the time, "Oh my goodness, your mother's such a lovely lady. She's like my mom." Da da da. And it made me think at times, how am I showing up to people where they want to love me like that, you know? And I think it's easy to get lost in those kind of things because then I start wanting to be more like my mom in a sense where I end up losing me. Now, once again, I did end up kind of turning into my mother. But, you know, that was...
I think we all do.
Yeah, you know, those are things that flow naturally.
We run away from it.
Oh my goodness, and all the time. I try to fight it now, you know, but it's crazy to look back when I was younger. I strived for that, and it was just like, oh my God, I want to be this so badly. And it wasn't matching up, you know?
Yeah.
But when you naturally allow yourself to flow into those things, then it comes where you're able to have your own tinge on stuff, you know, where you have your own mark on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely, I understand your point of view completely. You know, like growing up, especially, you know, coming from a family like mine where there's not only like 2 strong individuals in the home. I mean, we're a church family, we're like a business family. There's a mom and dad, and you're supposed to be just like mommy, and mommy don't do this, and mommy don't do that. And I'm like, but I'm Kier.
yes.
So, you know, even like now, although, again, I'm becoming so much like her, you know, like we'll have our conversations and stuff. And I'd be like, you know, like, yes, we're going to do it this way with this result, but let me just put my twist on it. You know, let me put my flair to it. And just kind of referring more to the business side of it. So we actually have multiple companies within our sort of umbrella. And each of us is more responsible for what we're good at. And that's kind of how it's grown.
Yes.
So, of course, there's like our main company, and then, which is the Do It Center, the hardware store. And then we have, so now we've got like villas and development going on and all this other stuff. And that's my forte because that's what I love. And that's a part, this is all becoming a part of sort of, I guess, me building my legacy. I mean, in preparing for today, I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. But, you know, it's about finding within, and that's been the challenge, finding in the big umbrella of things,
Your
which
niche.
may not be sort of your thing. Retail is not my thing. I love what we do and everything, but specifically retail is not my thing. And I have found love through my career and my skill, and I found a way to find my niche within that, you know? So that's all a part of going back to this word legacy. Like I said, like I was like, oh, okay, I'm building a legacy. I guess this is what I'm doing. And, you know, because it's something new and innovative to what we do. Although it's relative,
Yes,
it's feeding it, it's growing it into other things, but it's me. You know, so I'm this conversation or thinking about these things, actually I was like, oh,
You're doing something.
You do a little something, girl. You do a little something. And then, of course, with my design and all that stuff. So finding your niche within the umbrella of whatever it is that you're a part of. Because technically, the umbrella is their legacy, right?
Yes.
So now I have to find my place in that to say, okay, this was the umbrella, but these are the spurs, I suppose, the spurs that are coming off, and all of the little parts that bring it all together. And then a family legacy is now carried on. Or with me starting my own family, I have something that is me to pass on to them, and not just, okay, well, your grandma did this, so this is what I did, so this is what you're going to do.
You're gonna get,
And then, we live in a world that's so diverse and there are so many opportunities. You just have to have sort of the will and the want, more the want of deciding that this is what I want to do, and I'm going to step out and be bold enough to say, well, let's try this my way. Let's just do this little thing my way and make it your own, so that you also have your own name. You have your own identity. You have something to carry on. You have your own way of reaching out to the community and touching people and touching other people in your family, not just, particularly in your family, because those are the people that know you.
And they see you, sometimes they see you the most too. So
and they see you the most, and they correct you the most. And those are the people that, you want those moments to happen before
the public ones.
The public.
And I think you value the family ones more because, just like you said, because they know you, right? People in the public, they have an idea of who you are. They don't really know you. So, to an extent, does it really matter what they say sometimes?
And I want to touch on something, considering what you said, your family knows you, and you saying that, your spurs off this very big umbrella. Did you ever feel intimidated by having to create your own branch off of what your parents were doing, and going out and doing your own thing?
I wouldn't say intimidated, not intimidated.
But live up to an expectation.
But it's more of, like, to be quite blunt, how do I do this without seeming like the ungrateful child? Or just saying, and I've been fortunate enough where, like, my family, they get it. We all have different personalities completely. I have my two brothers, a younger sister, my older sister, but we all have completely different personalities. And everyone has their part, everyone does their thing their way. And I think it's a matter of respecting and understanding boundaries, and also accepting that, okay, yes, this person has to make his own individual mark as well as carry on what's happening. So I think it was more of finding the balance. That's the word.
And I think it's important to bring the balance in, right? Because then you bring who you are, like you said. So it brings that different flair. It's innovative. It's not what's been seen before. So it draws people to it now because it's something different. You want to get a part of it. Definitely. So.
Yeah, I think this topic, it's such a broad thing. And I love how we've been able to take it digging into, how do you feel having to go about creating a legacy even within one, right? Yeah. So we're not going to end the conversation here, but what we are going to do is take a quick pause. So we'll be right back, and don't you change.
Are you a fun, friendly person that loves to have a good time and to make people happy? Grace Bay Car Rentals needs you to be a part of their team. When you join the team, you can expect to work hard, be challenged every day, and to have opportunities for continuous learning and advancement. You will receive competitive wages and can earn company awards and bonuses, and we promise you will never be bored. Grace Bay Car Rentals is currently accepting applications for fun-friendly people for rental agents, car washers and drivers, accountants, certified mechanics, and many other positions. Stop by our Grace Bay or Leeward Highway locations to drop off your resume or CV today.
So just before we left off, we were diving in or digging into the topic of, what it means to create your own legacy. And right now we want to understand that whole process behind creating a legacy. So you want to create a legacy. Now, how do you go about, actually executing it? And for me, I think a little bit, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's about first identifying your purpose. And we all know figuring out your purpose is not the most easiest thing, but that's a conversation for another day. But, finding out your purpose and I think you have to play around a little bit. You have to figure out, what works and how do you interact with people. And it's also taking that feedback from people like, how do I make you feel? Because a lot of times I think for me, it's been figuring out like the way people speak back to me about how I make them feel or how did I impact them. So it's taking that idea and then kind of really shaping it into what you want to do. So for me, like I've always been a very shy person and my family is not shy. They're very outspoken and I'm not outspoken and I don't like conflict. So I'm more of like to myself kind of person. But as time has developed, I realized that I do have a voice and I do want to share things, but I have a way of how I want to share it because there's a way I want to be perceived and I want to share it in a much more very humble, very respectful way where I treat everyone on a very equal level. Of course, my friends get a lot of love, but everyone gets love across the board. But really just implementing it in that way where everything is just very equal and fair. And just, what is it that I want people to remember me by? Mm-hmm. And then there will be people in your life that God will help to bring your legacy into fruition. I believe in divine alignment. I believe that once you are intentional, like Kier said, like once you have the want and the will, everything will definitely line up, but you have to play your part in it, right? And you have to take control of your life and the narrative that you want and not allow it to happen to you, but you happen to it.
I agree with that. For me personally, you said something that stuck out to me, which is you decide you want to create this legacy, so you go about with it. And I think for me, it's quite funny. I never decided to create a legacy, right? And I think at times these were just things that were put upon me. Like I can remember, I used to do a lot of internships at Digicel to the point where I ended up being known as the princess of Digicel by some people. And it was just like, oh, okay, I guess, if I don't know, because it wasn't like they were using much, I guess you can say, promotion on me, really. It wasn't until I went away to Bermuda and I would just post on their stories. But even then, that wasn't a long period of time for them to be promoting myself. And that ended up being my legacy as being part of Digicel, the Digi Princess. Or even, when I think about my legacy, it's so funny. When we were talking about this, I never really thought for myself, do I have one of those? But when I think about it for me, it's a lot to do with me enjoying being around people. A lot of the work that I've done has been people-based. Oftentimes on the show, I talk about how much I adore my family, So dealing with people, getting to know them and being around them has been really what feeds me. And it makes me happy, right?
Oh, because Loren is, sorry to interrupt, Loren is definitely a happiest when she's grumpy. She's like bouncing off the...
It's crazy because I don't think I had really enjoyed being around people that much until during the pandemic when I was around nobody.
You was around no one.
I was locked up for months by myself, and then afterwards it was just like, oh, humans, it's so great,
Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Earth. And it's just, for me, the process looked more like I was just doing whatever I enjoyed in the moment. Yeah. And whatever that was, even if I didn't stick with it, it's something that stuck with me.
Definitely.
I did photography for 4 years. I haven't picked up my camera in at least 2 years since, but that's still something where I'm able to talk with our producers about what kind of cameras they're using or even understand the jargon they use. And it's things that stick where it's like, okay, she has this knowledge and she goes about assisting where she can with it, So I guess in a sense that can be my legacy. But, for me, I think that the process has primarily just been figuring it out as I go.
I mean, you're still living, right? So we will be creating this legacy or building this story or this narrative
for as long as we're here.
And really, it's going to be, it flourishes after we're gone. That's
people only going to recognize it.
Exactly.
They're going to go crazy when you're going and be like, oh my gosh, I miss her for this.
So, and kind of what you said, you referenced, like how happy you were or these moments of your happiness and your family and all these special moments are what's building your legacy and makes you happy. And I think when you're building a legacy or intentionally, I think it's definitely important to do things out of joy.
Yes.
And and being genuine. And people recognize that, and I mean, if that's, definitely the kind of legacy most of us want to leave, unless you want them to say otherwise, then you do otherwise. But I think, in a positive light, like, you want people to remember you as a genuine person, as a real person, as a relatable person. And the world we live in right now with so much going on, and, like, that's what's needed. Like, just genuine people, genuine moments, genuine experiences, all that we are all sort of narrating our own stories, but yet still at the end of the day, it's something beautiful that you leave with other people to remember you by. The way you feel, the way you've made them feel, the way you've touched your community. And I reiterate, your family first, because those are the people, if you're not doing it at home, to me, I'm more impressed by that. What you do with the people that love you and you love them and mean the most to you, and then you carry that out into you carry that same energy out into the community, or whether it's your career, whatever your career path might be, you carry that same energy. But just to reiterate, it starts at home with the people you love. And how do I want these people to feel? How do I want them to remember me? How do I want them to tell my story ultimately? Because although you're impacting, people in the public and your communities and your country even, at the end of the day, your real face is the face, that everyone sees at home. And then if you can carry that face out, it makes it even more beautiful.
Because that's interesting, because suppose you leave a legacy where everyone around you, strangers, they hype you up. You've created this really big legacy for yourself, but at home or in your family, people don't get that same experience. So now I'm thinking, like, so are you an imposter? Like, who are you?
Oh, she's different when she's out in the streets, but when she around us,
She's just
she ratchet.
yeah, you ain't know the real law. You don't know the real law.
That's interesting to think about, because we never really, like, that stuck with me. Like, I think it will stick with me throughout this whole show, because we don't really think about the family aspect. It's always strangers, but your family needs to experience the legacy too.
And it's funny you keep touching on family and how your legacy with your family will be. So we're going to do a little segue into your recent wedding, right? And me, I was able to attend. Thank you for that. And what I noticed a lot, me knowing you as someone who clearly is very close with her family, right? What I noticed is that throughout your wedding, I could see bits of your family in it. And that made me feel like I was knowing you more. So for the experience of planning out your wedding, how was it ingratiating your family's legacy into that,
Okay. Well, the date in itself, it was actually, we couldn't get away from talking about the wedding, right? Just throw that out there, get it off my chest.
Gotta get it in.
The date of the wedding was actually the anniversary of my grandfather's death. And he's one of those people, like, I can just imagine him sitting on this couch right now. I can hear his laugh. He's been gone for 16 years. I can hear his voice. It's like yesterday. So he's one of those people that definitely, I mean, we're talking about legacy. If there was a photo in the dictionary, it will be his next to legacy. And the date, I'm a numbers person. So picking that date was not intentional in the beginning. And then I said, you know what? Like, we've carried this for so long, and it was sort of a sad day for everybody. I was like, I'm going to turn it into something happy and make it even more memorable, but in a lighter way. So there was a lot throughout that date and others that meant much to us, like my husband. Let's go. My husband, his grandparents raised him, so we paid memoriam to them. And then there were a lot of other things infused that, that we liked, or he liked, or I liked, and my family likes. But again, that was all a part of that process.
And you did bring in a lot of, like, local vendors in on that journey of legacy with you. So what is it like, including people into that whole story for you? What does that mean?
I definitely you can't build a legacy on your own, first of all. It's a huge part of your story are the people around you. Of course, if I could have done absolutely every part of that wedding, just make it 100%. That was actually my initial plan to this is gonna be a completely amazing Turks and Caicos wedding. Okay, we're gonna do everything. We're gonna make it fabulous, and we're gonna have that was a little bit of a challenge considering I only had 6 months. But I wanted to infuse it with Turks and Caicos, and that's where we're from. That's where we love. I mean, my husband, Alvin, he had been away from home for a while, but home was his heart, from the moment we met, and home was always my heart. I always said, once I'm done with school and work and everything else, I'm going back home because that's where I want my legacy to be planted, And I feel like he had the same feeling as well. So here we are. So I definitely wanted I wanted local people to be a part of it. I wanted, my family and friends, his family and friends to be a part of it. And we have such a spectrum of friends. It was, you could tell by the people that were there. So it was, I wanted everyone to feel a part. I wanted everybody to feel like family, as big as the crowd was, beyond even what we anticipated. I wanted when people walked in that they felt like family, and they felt love, and they felt the genuine, love in the day. Yeah, there you go.
Love in the air.
Yeah, no, and I would say personally, you guys definitely succeeded with that. So what I want to know really quickly, because I think it's important how we see ourselves when it comes to legacy, right? But even how we see ourselves outside of a legacy. So I want to hear from both of you. How would you describe yourself to someone who wasn't from Turks and Caicos, had no clue about Turks and Caicos at all, no clue who a Fulford was, who an Adams or a Smith was, none of that, right? How would you describe yourself?
I would say, okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that something that one of the producers said to me when we first met, but I've always heard it. I have a lot of energy. I have high energy. And then someone else, we confirmed it later on, was it last year, they said that you bring your own energy, but you like to feel the energy of the people around you. And I think just starting from that point, that definitely gives a very great idea about who I am, right? I am this person who's very positive. Like I love happiness. I love everybody smiling and walking on the clouds. But I also want people around me to really be in that same feeling, that same moment. So when I'm around people, I want it to be much lighter. I don't want sad faces and down. Let's be happy. There's always something to be happy about. There's always something to be grateful about. So I wanted to first start off about being about love and about happiness and sharing God with people, because I believe that God is love, God is light. And when you share those things, you share it with people. And then I wanted to trickle down into about impact. How do I make people feel? But also what have I done that have made you went, I want to do more? Or, it made me feel like I can relate to her and I want to do more for myself, or, I inspire to do more, or you just look at it and just say, wow, she got through that. I can definitely get through that. So I definitely wanted to be a story of impact where someone's life was changed, even if it was one person. And I'll quickly tie in a story to it. I always have stories, but, for example, there's sometimes I'm posting these very motivational stuff on social media. And sometimes I'm I wonder if people are even watching this. But there's always that one person, or maybe that two people, right? And they will message you and they will say something like, I love this. I'm so glad that you said that, right? And it makes you feel like, okay, I'll definitely keep doing it. So you feel that impact. So initially, I think at the beginning, you may not always reach, and you will never always reach a lot of persons. But if you can reach just a few, I think that you've did your job by creating impact and really leaving a legacy.
Okay, what about you, Kier?
What would I tell someone about myself? I've had to do this so many times, and I'm thinking here and I'm stunned. But I found myself sort of, when I've ever had to introduce myself in this sort of a setting, they don't know anything about Turks and Caicos or my family. It's more about sort of, how can I help you with, or introducing myself in a way that I am helpful to them. Let me put it that way. that I am helpful to them. This is what I do. Of course, your typical intro, this is what I do. And usually a lot of great camaraderie and friendships stem from conversations like that, because I am not just trying to find out. I think a lot of introductions nowadays particularly are very, this is what I do based.
Yeah.
And what do you do? Okay, so now the bar has been set for kind of the respect. Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're an architect. Oh, you're a cashier. So, and I think so many times, especially living in a city, when I lived in Atlanta and you go to networking events, you find that a lot of people, it almost becomes, you only ask me what I do because now you want to set
The bar.
Yes.
Or
See how you can help me.
Yes. So it's, a lot of times I intentionally try to introduce myself in a way where, how can I be of help to you? Or what is it that, or try to find that thing that sort of, how can I help this person see this in themselves?
Okay.
Or help them through whatever. I mean, I know that takes a little bit of digging deep and getting personal sometimes, but I prefer, knowing how I can help people rather than, hey, what do you do? Oh, okay, I need this, I need that. No, how can I help you? How can I leave you with the good
Something,
energy?
yeah.
How can I leave you with something? And I think that's my preference of. And if I feel like I can't do that, I'll be honest. I'm very honest with myself. I take a step back and I just kind of, okay.
And I think for that, both of what you guys said, it links back to what your legacy is at the core of it. Wanting to have that impact, wanting to help, which is why I asked the question in the first place. What is the core of it beyond just what you do? How does it have a purpose out there? So, guys, this has been such a great conversation that I am hating to cut short right now. But
It was a good conversation.
it was so good. But don't worry, we are going to come right back after this break.
To stay up to date with our latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button.
Just before we left on our break, we were answering the question of what do we want our legacy to be, or what we want to tell, what we want people to know us by, someone who doesn't know Turks and Caicos, who doesn't know us, who doesn't know our family. We both got a chance to answer, but we didn't get to hear from Lori. So we really want to hear what's going on in Lori's mind. So tell us, Lori.
It's so funny because when I thought of this question, I did not think of what I would have said in response to it. But for me, I think it's funny, when I used to introduce myself to people all the time, it would be first, I'm from Turks and Caicos, I would be a walking billboard for hair. And following that, I would start saying to them, I do this, I studied that, and all these things would link back to me, once again, being around people and loving people. I do marketing, I teach at schools, So for me, it was always, I would say where I'm from, what I do, and then I would want to know, so what do you do though? I would want to know what's your mark, right? And I think that considering when I was talking to you guys and you guys gave your answers, and I said, that gives the core of your legacy. I think for mine, when I go back to what I just said, it goes back to me just wanting to know people better, and wanting to understand people. I've always loved hearing stories. I love learning about what makes you you, what have you experienced, and how can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? How can I be able to, like you said, assist you in whatever path you're going, But for me, it was always just going back to getting to know someone better, and from a genuine space, not from a space of, okay, so I know this about you. I'm about to start using this because you're beneficial here, or whatever, just knowing what makes the person, right? So, ladies.
Before we get to the questions, I know I want to sneak a question in. I know the producer's mostly going to be looking at me, but I want to sneak a question in. Do you think that we're able, because I know we both said, and it happens a lot of times when we're introducing ourselves, we tend to always throw in, what do I do? Is it possible to really create your legacy without tying in what do I do professionally?
think definitely. You know,
Um,
Or is there a fine line? Is it balance, or it has to be tied in a little bit?
I think it's a balance. I mean, for me personally, a huge part of I think the legacy that I'm starting to build has to do with my career as an architect, and just a little bit of the process that it even takes to, let's say, okay, you come to me and you want to design a house, right? The process of understanding what you want is me knowing you,
Yeah.
and me knowing a little bit about what the things you like, not just like what type of house you like. Oh, I want this room. I want my bedroom here next to the bathroom and the kitchen here. No, but it's about, okay, well, do you plan on having a big family? No kids, you know, like with things that you like, that you might want to be incorporated. So a lot of the process of my career work comes in knowing people and connecting with people in order to do a good job at it, right?
Yeah.
so the skills that you need for your job are also linked into what is the basis around your
Yes.
legacy.
Yeah. And then, you know, of course, in your career, most times in our careers, we find, I mean, and I'm not just talking about a job, I'm talking about the thing that you have found that, okay, whatever I do is going to be connected to this career-wise. Usually, that is a big part of your purpose. You know, it's a big part of defining the direction of your purpose and how you get to where you feel you should be in that purpose. You know, whether it's marketing or, you know, this beautiful TV show right here. Are we going to be on TV or on Instagram?
All over the place.
Sorry.
All over the place, darling.
So this beautiful show, wherever it may end up. And then, you know, like for me, architecture and design, like, you know, I look forward to when I get to a place where I can reach out and help the community more. I mean, it's so much needed here. And I know that somewhere along the way, that is a part of my purpose. I love helping people. I love, you know, helping people accomplish the things that they want to accomplish, or, you know, kind of whatever I can do. That's always been me. And I know a fusion of people and design and community work. And I know somewhere in there is my purpose. So I feel like, you know, if your career is completely detached from your purpose, then you might need to be rethinking that career, because you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be fulfilled.
I was going to say that, for example, my grandparents, my grandmother was the secretary for the governor. However, most people know her from being head of Girl Guides in Grand Turk. So, you know, her passion was that. And so I think it links back to what you do, but it doesn't always have to be what you do professionally. You know?
And considering the fact that you spend a lot of your days doing work, I mean, you might as well love it, and you might as well find a way to tie that purpose in, that legacy in any way.
Okay, so ladies, to the question jar. Kier, please pick a question for us and what you know about me.
I wonder what we have this week.
Read it out loud, please.
I don't know.
I'm scared.
No, this is a good one. What do you feel unites women?
Ooh.
That's a very broad question.
A lot of stuff. I don't know.
What unites women? A lot of things unite women. Good and bad things unite women. But
the first thing that came to mind for bad. I did on TV.
For me, it's funny you guys both said you thought something bad. For the instant thing I thought of was experiences.
Yes.
Rather it's good experiences or bad ones.
Definitely.
You know, the heartbreaks, the wins.
Yes. Yeah.
People definitely
we relate.
gather around on a heartbreak for sure.
Stories. I don't want to say gossip, but like the stories. It's just, you know, I mean, girl talk.
The sharing of information.
Definitely, especially, you know, when you're looking for healthy relationships, you have to be vulnerable to a certain extent. Find the people that you can be vulnerable with.
Yes.
First of all. And, you know, like this day and age, in previous generations, there were so many women that didn't share and just kind of suffered and figured things out alone for whatever, pride or whatever the case may be. And I think we live in a generation now where we're so much more willing to share.
Which is important.
And to say, you know, I don't have to go through what they went through, or I don't have to go through what this person went through alone. But again, you have to know who you can share those things with, and the boundaries, even with those people that
Yeah.
you have to set. So
Talk some,
yeah,
keep
I think,
some, eh?
yeah. So definitely, I think definitely our stories bring us together. You know, our experiences and our
I
stories.
don't know. I think for me, I'm very much an energy person. So if your energy is good, if I see you bouncing off the walls, I see you like really like happy, you're talking like you're just really in your element, I'm just gonna just connect myself with you. I find that's happened with a lot of my friendships. Like, oh, you have a good energy, okay? So we just start talking. And I'm just like, I like her. Yeah, we were talking about girls. I was gonna say I like him, but I like her. And just the energy. I think for me, and just like you said, connection and be able to talk, knowing that we can talk about different things, and then you find that there's some stuff that we like together. And so really, it's about for me starting with the energy, and then going into the conversation.
And like I said earlier, and in agreement with you, because I also agree with you too, Ziggy, but experiences, because I think as women, and even from our group chat, in our group chat with the producers, we're the only two ladies, and it's
Defending
three guys.
ourselves.
And we find oftentimes that we're the ones on one side and the guys are on another side. And even though we have different backgrounds and things like that, I think as women, there are certain key experiences, certain key feelings that we have that link us all in some way, regardless of race, creed, tongue, all the other things they mention in the songs. There's something within that human experience that connects us.
Definitely.
And ladies, this conversation, I didn't expect for it to expand so far.
Because I was just supposed to insert something, but I think I see green cards going on.
Our producers are like, please. But, I enjoyed it so much because I think that having these kind of conversations, sharing these experiences and stories, it's important, that
And we get connected. Yeah, we get talked about.
We get connected, and I want to thank you, Kier, for coming on with us and sharing your experiences and your stories with us, because like you said, we're in a time where people are more vulnerable and have to be willing to show that side, because how do we expect everyone else to grow and develop, right? We have to be our sister's keeper.
And the world has gone
keeper.
from this to like,
It's this big now.
Yeah.
It's so small.
and it's so important. And this even connects back to creating your legacy, is like connecting with, particularly us as women, connecting with each other. And because kind of the energy you share, it's human nature, right? The energy you'll share among a crowd of both sexes and the energy you share amongst women is completely different. So how are we taking care of each other? You know what I mean?
How are we creating the sisterhood? I love a sisterhood stuff.
So guys, thank you so much for coming on another ride with us here at Let's Get Candid. I hope you got something out of these conversations that we had today and that you come back for our next episode. So stay tuned.